Welcome to the Game On podcast. Tonight, shock, 36ers, Ninnis sacked as head coach. Port Adelaide win ugly, but the 4 points are more important at this stage of the year. And Adelaide, a glimpse into Adelaide's future with some young guns stepping up. Let's do this. Welcome to the Game On podcast. My name's Pete, and once again, joined by Malcolm. Malcolm, what was your good for the week, mate?
A bit of an amusing one. After the game of the Nord game on Saturday, I wandered over the Cooper's box, and Jeff Wilson, my normal mate, didn't have the box on Saturday, and spoke to the guys in it. And look, like to a shout out to Brad Grummer, a normal listener to our show. Bought a copy of my book and said he loves our podcast. So
Absolutely.
Thank you to Brad from Cooper's. Greatly appreciated.
And as per usual, if you haven't done so far, we do have a Facebook page, which most of you probably already know about. We have ramped up our social media on YouTube. So if you haven't liked, rated and subscribed so far, please do so.
Yeah, Brad Grunert. So greatly appreciated, Brad.
Absolutely. Thank you, mate.
I'm going to go this week on a personal one. My book, The Definitive Rule Book, has got a spot in the MCC library.
Fantastic.
And it's not the easiest thing to do, and thank you to Brad and Jake for their help in that regard, but it's sort of like effectively been getting a AAA rating.
Yep.
So
a Michelin star.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, pretty proud and pretty happy with that.
Absolutely. Is there any chance of a volume 2 maybe coming out?
Oh, it's still in the
pipeline?
maybe. It's a maybe.
Yep.
But anyone interested in a copy, please just message us on the podcast and on our page, or myself, Malcolm Rulebook Ashwood, would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
Father's Day coming up.
Absolutely. Any particular interviews that you would really like to do that you'd maybe like to add to your second book there?
I'd love to get Chris McDermott.
Yep.
Something I still haven't managed to convince him to do, but there's a story which a lot of people still don't know, and he is probably the one where I'd still like to convince him to change his mind.
Yep.
So
all right. Well, we'll look out for that one there. But as you said, Father's Day is coming up soon. So if anyone's keen, get in touch, and we'll make it happen and
definitely
and gift wrap it and make Dad a happy man on Father's Day. All right. Let's move into Around the Grounds.
Around the Grounds.
All right, coming up on the agenda today, a little later today, the SANFL, the cricket, and we're going to finish off talking about the Olympics, but we'll get straight into the AFL, mate. Let's talk hot topics first up. The concussion is back on the agenda with insurance failing to cover new players in the future. That's a huge statement that's just come out.
It's mammoth. People still just have no idea what threat the game's under, and keep objecting to the bump and the tackle, and it's not as tough as it was, and all that bullshit.
Yep.
What's happening behind the scenes? The game's future is very much under threat. It really is. Whether there'll be football in 5 to 10 years' time, we don't know.
I know we did talk about this briefly a couple of weeks ago, how you sort of said that, players just sign a waiver and it'll be okay, and you'd spoken to a lawyer and it doesn't work that way.
Yep.
Is that something that we can see potentially moving towards that with obviously a little bit more of a legal background? I'm not a lawyer, you're not a lawyer, so we're not going to go down that path, but can we see that happening?
No. I've spoken to 3 lawyers who say that just does not apply under the way the act of the law is. So it's pointless. What's probably the more
realistic,
hopeful thing is that there has been some progression with helmets. Now that needs to get through, and that still will be a while away with getting enough proof and all that side of things. But yeah, the game, it's wow.
It's in a very delicate
it is.
place right now, isn't it? We think that it's all fantastic, with the games being close and the top 8's not finalised and everything. But simmering behind the scenes here now, there's a real worry that this game may be put in jeopardy because of concussion protocols.
Oh, very much so. And I just think there's still so much naivety out there. And, places like the mongrel punt and things like that, you've got a responsibility of the game, just don't get it and then don't want to learn. And you just have to. You just have to. It's something we've taken right seriously here. We've had Sean Tasker, Millie Bishop, Dr. Stevens on about concussion.
Yes.
And you sit there, you listen, you then speak to lawyers behind the scenes and
Try to get a feel for where
club
it's all at.
officials, CEOs. You know, it's not something I'm saying lightly, and just people have just got to listen and want to learn a lot more.
Now we've talked obviously with all those experts, like we've said, and the overwhelming thing that came back was more about the neck strength rather than the padding in the head as far as helmets go, because obviously the brain rattles, the rattling around is what causes the effect. Is it a case of clubs and fitness staff doing a lot more work in that area to help sustain that?
My understanding is there's been progression in the helmets in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind delving a little bit deeper into that in the future.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. We'll circle back to that one as we do. All right, let's move on to the local teams here. We'll start off with Port Adelaide in a seesawing game. Port had to hang on there in a few times to grind out a game, and they were challenged.
Let's ground it out to their credit. Jason Horne-Francis was the key. He was huge.
Yep.
I think he's making a pretty good case for All-Australian at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, let's listen to what Kenny Hinkley had to say regarding Jason Horne-Francis.
Oh, he's had a massive year. I mean, he's been unbelievable for a third-year player. He's damn talented. It's tough. Plays footy in everything you want him to. He plays it the right way, and and sometimes his emotions can boil over. But I love the way he plays footy. He's got a spirit in him that says, I'm not going to lose, and I think that's what we're building through that group of midfielders, that the resilience comes from a few people who just want to make sure that we get over the line, and I think tonight he was super in the last quarter. You don't handcuff great players, I don't think. I think you let them make decisions that they need to make at the right time, and the team trusts them a little bit, and I think we have to be prepared to trust some players, because they don't always get it right. They make some mistakes, trying to do the right thing more often than not, but I think ultimately, you've got to let them.
Obviously, Kenny's talking about letting the star players of the game go, and that probably leads me into my point in that the game became a little sanitised for a few years there now, and we're starting to see a little bit more individuality come back into it.
And Horne-Francis' decision-making in that last quarter was exceptional. When he went behind the ball, whether that was instruction or not, but his judgment of when to go, the angles to release, to keep the ball safe.
It's almost like the Charlie Curnow role for Carlton and the Dawson role for Adelaide, and maybe to a certain degree the Bontempelli role for the Bulldogs, that when the going gets tough a little bit, he takes it upon himself to plug those holes.
Oh, and it'll be interesting this week. The Crows will be trying to get into his and Butter's head, and that we know there's a question mark there, that both have lost it at various times this year. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that Port will try and get into Rankin's head. So it's going to be interesting in that regard.
Well, you've led us beautifully. Showdown, we're going to talk about we'll do a bit of a flashback to one of the all-time classic games and one of the all-time classic players later on in our flashbacks. But Port Adelaide, it's important that they're healthy at this time of the year. That's probably the one key piece of the puzzle, I suppose, that's been missing over the last couple of years, is probably that little bit of health later on in the year.
Yeah, and it's also interesting, Marshall getting concussed again. And unfortunately, there's a real thing there, and to be very careful there. And Georgiadis doesn't look like he'll come up. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Port go, whether they pick Lord. Mm-hmm. I hope they do, because I think they'll be too top-heavy, or whether they go smaller. And I think smaller tests Adelaide more than height. Well, so I'd go smaller if I was
That was going to be my point, is that this weekend with the Showdown coming in, is it a case of Port maybe being a little bit tall? So that's going to be an interesting little byplay that happens as well. Showdown week, Showdown week is always interesting, and sometimes it can be won and lost at the selection table. And the last couple of years, Adelaide have probably won that battle.
Oh, and Walker being injured for Adelaide's vital.
That is huge.
You can still make a case for him being Adelaide's most important player for the direction he provides. Now, whether we like it or not, there's still a huge question mark over Fogarty when Walker's not out there. Mm-hmm. His form when Walker hasn't played hasn't been anywhere near as good. So
this is
he
hasn't had Thilthorpe.
Yeah, so having Thilthorpe this week, and I think they'll probably play Gallant.
Yep, who kicked 8 in the SANFL. Yep.
So that'll be it's a real test for Adelaide's future. And if they bomb without Walker again, geez, you'd almost be rushing to get him to sign the piece of paper in the rooms immediately.
Yep.
So
Now,
yeah.
Walker's injury obviously sustained late in the win against the Bulldogs there. Do we see him being put out to pasture for the remainder of the year, or are they going to bring him back for maybe that last game against Sydney?
I wouldn't. I doubt whether he'd play the last game too. In terms of, you just got to be so careful with eyes. So yeah,
I know it's not the same injury as Rory Sloane. They've already come out and said,
but
it is that part of the body. Exactly right. It was interesting that they came out and sort of said that this had been sustained previously. It was a previous injury that maybe have just exacerbated with the contact from English on the weekend.
Yeah. And we acknowledge how eyes can be that way.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to Adelaide. Adelaide, another interesting performance. Makes you wonder how and why this year has evolved the way it has.
Yeah. It is interesting, isn't it? Because they were... But then Western Bulldogs, as to, I think it was Brad Johnson's credit, whoever it was, is a bit irrelevant, nailed it that Western Bulldogs kicking for goal was going to cost them sooner or later.
Yep.
And like their previous 4 games, at least might be 5, where they'd kick more points than goals. And sure enough, 9-16 on the weekend. Young Darcy, 1 goal 5.
Yep.
Now, he dominated, but he kept missing.
Yep.
No scoreboard pressure put on whatsoever.
Absolutely. All right, let's listen to what Matty Nix had to say.
We're playing for each other, at the moment. Disappointing not to be playing for finals, but we're playing for each other. And so that in itself is a really positive sign that we're able to, keep grinding, keep going.
You've tripped up one finals contender. How much would you like to do it next week?
Yeah, we'd really like to win next week because next week's, that game that everyone looks forward to. We get it twice a year and it's a big one for us. And we're coming up against a team that are in good nick, really good nick. So they're setting themselves for finals. They want to keep that momentum going. We'll be doing everything we can to keep our form off the back of this pretty good performance.
All right, Matty Nix obviously talking about the benefits of playing out the year as solid as they had. Their young players are starting to build now. Do they have enough of a spine? And I'm not talking about as in strength, but the spine of the team to complement with a little bit of class that they're trying to bring into the club?
I think there's distinct signs there. Like Dowling missing out at the moment, which bemuses me a bit. But Bond's been very good down back. Taylor, Saligo. So there's a fair bit of promise there. Look, they need Rochelle to take a step forward. I think Rankin will spend more time in the midfield because they just have to. They need his pace.
Yep.
It's incredible how one player back makes you look so much quicker, all up.
He was able to break lines.
Yeah, he does. He just carries and goes.
Looking at some of the footage, he was able to weave his way and dodge through. I mean, I know he'd had 3 or 4 weeks off, so he's fresh as a daisy, ready and raring to absolutely fly. But just the ease that he did it was impressive.
Oh, no, he is class.
Yep. I mean, streaming out of the middle.
Can get sucked in.
Yes.
It was dumb what he did, but, geez, he can play.
Yep. Streaming out of the middle and delivering the ball to Fogarty on the lead. I mean, that's something that Adelaide fans should be excited about for the future.
Well, he uses the ball pretty well as well.
Yeah, and that's hard. Good midfielders are hard to find that can use the ball a bit like
especially going at pace.
Yeah.
Too. Well, there's quite a few guys over the years been blistering and quick.
Yep.
But then don't balance before they kick the ball.
Yep.
And where he does.
Where do you see Scholl? His last month and a half has been impressive. Have they finally got him in the position that he needs to play in?
Oh, I think so. But it's also just the wingman has probably come back into the game a bit more. That wide wingman to run, carry the ball, is come back into vogue. You think of Langdon at Melbourne, Akers at Carlton.
Yep.
So it's probably just slightly back more into the game. It had gone out, and as we know, footy always evolves, goes circles.
Yep.
The wingman who's on the outside.
Yes.
And then the idea is to run and carry and use the ball, and it's quite often governed in metres gained, which I always find that a little bit of a bemusing stat where
Well, it can be
someone gets it and
hidden.
boots at 60 metres and it's considered 60 metres game when it goes straight to the opposition. So it's,
Should be metres gained and effectiveness.
yeah,
That
and
probably
which is
should be
my
the
beef
stat.
with ruck taps. I think the way ruck taps is regarded.
Well, Riley
is
O'Brien's
ridiculous.
like 90 ahead of everybody
Yeah.
else, but the advantage is not there for the Crows. So that stat is a little bit like that. Ben Keys, again,
had a good year.
have they found a position for him that he is just that energizer bunny working up and down the ground, almost like a basketballer, doing suicide runs?
Yeah, no, to his credit, he's had a great year. Look, whether he gives the ball on the first time, that's his weakness, but they've utilised, seemingly found his strength, and you would think he'll go to Houston and he'll play the role of both ways to try and negate Houston as well. So, yeah, he's had a very good year. He'd be borderline for that All-Australian squad of 40. I don't think he'll make the team, but I reckon he's a chance for the squad of 40.
Well, his last month he's put together has probably got him into that
around
squad.
the
You're
mark.
right. We'll stick with the showdown or the showdown week theme. Is that Adelaide lead obviously by 1 at the moment, but their last 3 games they won by about 6 goals or more. Have the Crows worked Port Adelaide out?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, a couple of those Port missed vital goals at the time, and there was one of those they were well on top in the second quarter, but blew it by kicking. Not Greg blew it, but blew it by kicking 1-6 in the second quarter. So, yeah, we analyse, and we all do it. Saturation media now. It's us. It's everyone.
Yes,
we all overanalyse to the nth degree, but it's really whether you kick the bloody thing between those 2 big white ones or not. In the end, it's the Crown.
Plays a big difference.
Mate.
Vital week for both teams. Adelaide are obviously looking to continue their good form, as Matty Nix just sort of said there. We're looking to continue our form, but they are also looking to trip Port Adelaide up.
Yeah.
What are the consequences for Port Adelaide if they don't get the job done?
Port could miss the top 4 spot, miss home finals, and then they've got to play 4 elimination finals, of which of only 1 will be at home. So it's massive.
Yep.
It's probably deciding with this. They finished top 2 home finals. Yes, we know they've bombed in finals, and we know they haven't got just a monkey on their back. They've got the whole bloody zoo when September comes.
Yep.
But if they can get 2 home finals,
it goes a long way to helping it, doesn't it?
huge.
So the carrots dangle there for Port Adelaide. It's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. Adelaide, do they look to go hammer and tong for Lukosius?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one because they're going to pick Welsh up. I see them as a little bit similar. I see Lukosius, if you're going to play him, you pick him up and he plays either on a wing or down back and uses elite leg and that side of things. Yes.
So does that free up someone like a Mokalani, though, to move into the middle?
Maybe. He's probably different height, though, different matchup. But if they do, it's just going to be interesting what they'd have to give up. There's no way in the world they give up pick 4 or 5 for him.
No. Yeah, that'd be asking a bit too much.
Be down the line. So it'll just be interesting to see what happens.
Moving across to Port Adelaide, Houston speculation isn't going away. Is this a concern for Port Adelaide?
If you keep winning and you go finals, and if you manage to jag the Holy Grail, so be it.
Yep.
But I still think he'll be at Port. We'll wait and see.
Okay. Is Kenny's question without notice, Kenny's decision to be coach or not coach, play a part in that? Do you think?
Oh, I don't think it's going to be his decision. I think it'll either be Port's decision.
No, I'm saying if Kenny stays, does Houston stay, or if Kenny goes, does Houston go?
No, I wouldn't go as much as that
okay.
because if they go on the succession plan of what they're, the way it looks like at the moment, and it's Josh Carr, well, he's obviously had a lot to do with Josh Carr, so I think we can probably jump at shadows a bit.
Oh, that's right. I'm just throwing it out there as a little question. We'll circle back. Horn Francis, the game winner, obviously we talked about there and Kenny talked about there. But for what Port gave up, will it pay off for them? Or is it still too early to call? Because he's only in his 3rd year.
Look, I think he's one a generation player. I would have given that up well and truly if I was in charge of signing that. And look, there was another player from another club who was 1 minute away from signing for Port Adelaide, which would have made the Horn Francis deal very unlikely to happen.
Okay. Very interesting. I might poke you about that one off air. Showdown 56, what do you think, mate? Who's your tip? We'll go early on the tips here.
I'll still go Port. Let's remember the last game they played here against Sydney at home is the best football anyone's played for the whole year. I still think they're a better side, but it's going to be how much up above the head and who kicks straight.
Yep. All right, we'll talk about last week's game there very briefly. Were they a bit flat against Melbourne?
Did seem a little bit that way. But again, it's a away game. Melbourne clogged it up. Gawn played probably a bit deeper behind the ball, made it a little bit hard to
penetrate
and go through run and lines like he is so good, such a good player. So it made it more a battle of attrition. Melbourne missed a couple in the last quarter, which might have been enough. So, yeah.
Port Adelaide's big 3 on the MCG just looks about right, doesn't it?
And Drew.
Well, the big 4, yeah.
Yeah, Drew. And also, to Ollie Wine's credit, he looked gone earlier in the year. He looked, he's just almost making up the numbers. But both Wines and Boak have picked up a little bit. So all of a sudden, they've got some real depth back in that midfield where it looked like there wasn't for a fair while.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But they've tweaked things a little bit.
Yeah.
And being healthy also helps that as well. All right, let's move on with a couple of extra hot topics here. Has Melbourne been the biggest disappointment this year for you, or is the jury still out on that with a couple of rounds to go and maybe some finals positions still up for grabs?
Yes, but let's also remember they lose Petrarca. Now, Petrarca's in the best 5 players in the comp. Completely different now.
Well, go with it now. Petrarca, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Well, I think the way that was handled at the time is put understandably. It reads that he was almost forced to go back on the ground. That's the way it's looking from the outside.
Yep.
Now that may be totally wrong.
So you're reading between the lines.
Reading between the lines
what's come out
in terms of in that way, and we always know players want to play.
Yep.
And that just shouldn't have happened anyway. It was really poorly done by Melbourne, but it's seemingly from a few comments, and again, you're relying a bit on accuracy, but a couple of comments from our family members did also question that, whether it was totally his call, and I think it was handled badly, and as he said, there does seem to be a bit of smoke, fire.
Did it rear its ugly head with the incident with Stephen May on the weekend? Or the weekend before? Is that what's brought this all about? Is that the same thing happened to May as what happened to Petrarca?
You're not sure on the injury in terms of slightly different. I know they've said that's
the
second time he's done it.
From the medical side of things, in that May went back out there for another, I think it was 7 minutes or 12 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it's also, too, we've also got to remember that you don't have the results at the time. The player says, no, I'm okay. They do various tests, and the player, no, I'm right.
Yeah,
I'm
because
right.
they want to play. Yep.
There might be a particular SANFL player who said, no, I'm right, and has made the injury a hell of a lot worse at the moment as well. So players always say that.
Yep.
But you can certainly question whether they've been strong enough medically, and
so that's the culture they're talking about, not the coaching scenario with, Oliver's issues that seem to be
I think
dragged out.
I think that's a little bit different. The coach really on that one generally doesn't have much to do with it. So, especially nowadays, the coach used to, but not so much now. So, but yeah, that's from the outside, and having not chased it up whatsoever.
No.
That's my impression.
You give your opinion. That's what we're here to talk about and say. Question without notice, does this put a little bit of a dampener on Adelaide's attempt to maybe recruit Oliver?
I still think there's still too many question marks and baggage marks.
Okay, so then if Adelaide don't go for that trade, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think you can with Oliver at the moment. It's also what you're going to have to give up. And let's also remember it's a huge contract for another 5 to 6 years. So you're virtually hemorrhaging your recruiting for the next few years as well.
Yep.
So it'd be a huge call.
But Adelaide in a position, though, that they've locked away a lot of their young talent, that they can have this little assault right now for 1 or 2 really good players? It's whether they want to come. That's totally different too.
Let's remember, Adelaide haven't played finals for 7 years.
Yep.
I don't think they're in the premiership window to go all balls in for, say, an Oliver.
Or a Petrarca.
Yeah.
They're not. Melbourne aren't going to give up not going to give up Trucker. We sort of know that. I think that's, where there's smoke, there's fire, but that won't change.
Yeah.
On the flip side of the coin, conversely there, is Hawthorn the most surprising team of 2024?
Yeah, I think so. They've been fantastic. And let's also remember they blew the game against Port here and they blew the game against GWS. Now, they should have won 2 more games and then they're looking top 4, let alone top 8. So, and they lost those games.
Yes.
You know, so.
And Sammy Mitchell put up his hand and said, look, I got that one wrong.
And isn't that good to hear someone actually admit they've made a mistake?
Yep.
Because they did get too defensive.
Hawthorn are playing with a freedom at the moment that is just exciting to watch, almost like Adelaide last year, that you got excited for this year and then they sort of pulled it back defensively and it just hasn't worked. And now since they've sort of bombed out of the finals race, they've played with a bit more freedom.
Yeah, and that quite often. But also, I think Saturday was this last round's the first time where Rankin, Thilthorpe, Murray and Dawson have all played together. First time for the year. So it's...
And you're looking at, round 22 for that to happen.
Yeah. So it's often who's on the park.
Okay, so like I said a little bit earlier, the spine's starting to show some promise.
Yeah.
They just need to add some class and some bulk to that. And
yes, they do, but I don't think you want to sell the farm either.
Yep. Fair call.
And I hope Adelaide get Draper in the draft. I'm very bullish, having watched him a lot at South, rate him really highly. And as one of the leading recruiters talking to him, that he just said he's a slap bang 200 game player.
Okay.
That's how I see him.
Welsh, Draper.
Yeah, that'd be mine.
So does that mean Adelaide need to temper their expectations for maybe one more year?
Yeah, maybe. Look, it's also got to wait and see whether Draper's available. You know, talking to a key South person the week before, where they said at the start of the year he was, being mentioned as potential number 1. Then he's injured, has a reasonable weight at his carnival, but doesn't dominate because he was underdone and he wasn't 100% right. So he falls down the pecking order. All of a sudden he dominates for South in a couple of league games, and he's mentioned that he might go number 1 again. So we just got to wait and see.
They're saying that the top 10 to 12, 15 is very deep this year. So whichever pick you've got, you want to maximise it.
Yeah.
Adelaide have made no bones of saying number 1 picks on the table, but I don't know whether that's the right move unless you get the right trade.
I really don't. I don't want that to happen personally.
Is it a case of a mix of players and some draft picks later on that might actually get some of those deals done?
I would hope so.
Yeah, fair call. All right, let's move on. Caleb Sarong, is he Freo's best player? Is he amongst the best in the league?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, extremely damaging.
Because he goes under the radar being in Perth. We don't talk about the Perth teams as much as we probably should.
For as much as we all talk about this coach and that coach, recruiting, summing things up right at the time, measuring also the person mentally as well and making sure you nail that. Sarong went after McCasey. Now, that's nothing against McCasey, who was regarded as the best defender in the draft.
Yep.
That was Adelaide's requirement. So I get all that. But one draft choice changes everything. You mentioned Sarong in that Adelaide midfield for the year, all of a sudden, who knows where they'd be. Yep. So it is a fine line.
It is. They get it right and things can completely change, and you really want to get that right. All right, let's talk about some trade whispers. The Hawks look like a destination club of old, really, attracting some players. It looks like Barras may be on his way there from West Coast.
Yeah, I think they'll either get Barras or Battle. It looks one of the two of them for sure, and I think they're both holding off to see what the other one does, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a bit amusing.
Mexican standoff.
So and look, you hear Ginnivan saying how much, and it's not only him, but saying how much fun it is and all that. Now that probably sells your club as much as, to the other 20, 21, hey, this is fun.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon that's the best selling point anyone could say.
Mm-hmm.
So
rather than the dour day in, day out work. We're having fun. We're enjoying our successes. We're taking our failures in stride. And you've got a coach who's going, you know what, I made a few positional changes that weren't right. That's on me. But let him play. And a bit like what Kenny Hinkley said there, let your guns just go.
Yeah. Yep.
Makes a huge difference, that's for sure. The Crows, a little sneaky meeting for Matty Nix with Jack Lukosius. Obviously talking trade whispers there. Did that play a part in him not playing on the weekend?
He'd been dropped before then, I think. So, yeah, but I admit I find that it's a bit hypocritical. You're supposedly not meant to be talking to players in contract. Now, I'd love to know where that's gone. It used to be a big fine, and all of a sudden that's disappeared. You know, Mitchell flew over to talk to Barras as well. So, yeah, it's very much now.
Open slather.
Yeah, go for it. And yeah.
Is this us slowly starting to move towards the EPL, NRL,
Yeah, I think it is.
American Gridiron, baseball, where you can talk to players in contract during season?
Oh, yeah, it is, because there used to be a big fine. Obviously, there's not anymore. So I don't.
Have the AFL dropped the ball on that one?
Well, I don't.
Or they just can't stop it?
Maybe a little bit of both, but I don't know why it's suddenly allowed where it wasn't. It used to be big, and it certainly hasn't been announced that it's okay now, yet it just seems to be. So I don't know where that's come from. Anyway.
It'll be interesting to talk about that one as it goes along. All right, let's have a little bit of fun here. Is Dusty the best player we've seen this century? Obviously announcing his retirement last week. I've got some names here. Let's put them in context here. We've got Dusty, Ablett Jr., Dangerfield, or Neil.
Well, the pure fact that he's won 3 Norm Smiths, you know, McLeod 2 and that side of things. Yeah, okay, he was probably, you could have had 17, you could have had, you know, he was probably one of several. The one where he did win the game was the grand final against Geelong at the Gabba, where he just took over.
He had a purple patch there for about 20 minutes that just tore.
Ironically, Dangerfield, obviously the key on the other side, he bumped him out of the way to kick the goal. The error by Geelong just before half-time, he kicks a goal. So, again, Geelong hold on to that ball correctly like they should have for 30 seconds. It's a totally different game. So, it is fine. But he's certainly obviously right up there. Look.
Well, the names there, Ablett Jr., Dangerfield and Neil. Well, Neil might be looking at a third Brownlow.
Yeah, I know.
Dangerfield's been a good servant and a great player for Geelong.
And I think he was underrated back here. It's funny, he moves back to Melbourne, all of a sudden the Victorians notice him more and go, gee, how good is Dangerfield? And we're going, he's been the best 3 players in the comp for years, but you guys just didn't notice it.
Yep.
I think with Ablett too, let's also remember that year with Gold Coast when he was obliterating the competition when he did his shoulder.
Yep.
Like, that was one of these. He doesn't do a shoulder that year. He shits the Brownlow in. He carries them to the finals.
Mm-hmm. It's a different story for their franchise as well, and for him.
Yeah.
Congratulations, obviously, go to Dusty. We did talk about Tom Hawkins retiring last week, and today, just breaking news that Dyson Heppel from the Essendon Football Club has now announced his retirement. It's about the right time of year where we start to see a few of these players. Is there one that might jump out at you coming up?
I reckon let's wait and see. Wayne Stremple, one of our regular listeners, has called for us to do a section on that and all that. I think we'll do that in the next few weeks.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, thanks to Normie there. We will do that.
Yep. We'll have a look at that one there as well. All right, let's quickly rush through some of the results from last weekend. Sydney getting up over Collingwood by 3 points. They had to come from nowhere to win in a Friday night thriller. Heaney was huge, so was Warner.
Yeah, interesting where Collingwood were the master of the close game last year, and they stuffed that up. They went too defensive. Look, the carry-on over the 50-metre penalty there, yes, McCartan did go over the mark, but the umpire is bringing him back. Now, with the mistake which McStay made was playing on. If he doesn't play on there, I reckon the umpire's thinking about it for that split second longer, and he's probably paying it. As soon as McStay goes, it's play on, and that's it. That's the end of the equation on it. So,
is that because of the directive from the coaches to keep things moving? If they play on, let them go?
Maybe, but I just don't reckon he thought through it quick enough. But it's a split-second thing. Well, but, yeah, it's a hard one on that one. He's told go, so, yeah.
Think back to the North Melbourne Collingwood one. He did exactly the same thing. He played on.
Swings and roundabouts. You know, the carry-on by McRae over that was a bit extraordinary, and it was dumb.
Yep. It
was probably his first real bad moment and dumb moment as a coach, and quite rightly.
Well, he's got some credit in the bank,
though. Quite rightly, Longmire slammed him afterwards immediately with, 14 games at the G, 3 at Marvel, and you're whinging. I think
home ground affirmation,
Longmire, it was McRae caught Court Marsh bowled
Bowled
Lily,
Lily, yep.
no score by a long mile in
Absolutely.
that
All
regard.
right. The Brisbane Lions losing at home there to the Giants. The first quarter, Brisbane looked like they were going to do what Port Adelaide did to Sydney the week before. And then the Giants came out for the next three quarters and went bang, 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 and really showed that their talent, again, can get the job done.
But it was all missing goals. And it was incredible. The stat came up that it's 40. Brisbane should have won that game by 41 points on the normal ratio of goals where they were kicked from. And because GWS kicked a few out of their lemon and SARS.
Yep.
And
I think they should have been up by 49 points at quarter time.
Well, they missed some sitters. Yeah. Cameron missed 20 yards out straight in front. Rayner missed an easy one. So, yeah, kick the bloody goal and they win that game. So, yeah.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how the Giants go this weekend.
How
we'll
good was Jones in that last quarter? Quick.
Yep.
Kabanksky.
I think that's what you need, isn't it? That live
burst.
wire, that burst. Exactly right. The Eagles getting up over North Melbourne down in Tasmania. Strengthening the case for Jared Schofield maybe to become the coach. Two in a row now.
Yeah, but it's also a bit of elimination where people have knocked it back. He might be the last man standing, effectively. So
because it is a case of no one really wants that job at the moment, or isn't putting their hand up.
And now they play Carlton this week, and Carlton's injuries, like Pete, you could be on the next flight.
I know.
You could be in. Yeah. You could be in the forward pocket for the Blues.
You
and Lee Forrest could be leading that forward line.
A couple of sausage rolls there. I'm probably just as injured as Orazio at the moment,
Jamal
so I might get
Waddington, a late inclusion.
I might get a call up. The Dockers in an entertaining seesawing game against the Cats.
Yeah, it did, but probably their systems almost got them up there as well. They were well organised. Dangerfield in that last quarter was huge for them. I was a bit disappointed it wasn't upstairs on the game upstairs at the Red Leagues Club after in the Wolf Blast Centre after the game.
Yep.
And so I had to go and find it, but yeah, they did the basics for longer, better than the Dockers.
Yep. The Cats are a sleeping giant for me when it comes to the finals this year. The Suns getting up in a 1-point thriller with a kick after the siren. Mac Andrews, cool, calm, collected, and bang.
And you did call it. I'll give you that one.
Thank you.
I will say, though, quite correctly, Essendon have been towed for their positioning and tactics in the last couple of minutes was horrendous. And, yeah, I think, again, you need the coach to admit when they've stuffed up. Brad Scott didn't. Mm-hmm. And I think he would have gained more kudos if he said, geez, we stuffed that up.
That's not in his DNA, though. He's very strong. And
but admit when you make mistakes.
Obviously, Port Adelaide getting up by 2 points. We've already talked about that one there. The biggest surprise from the weekend was Hawthorn beating Carlton by 74 points.
And just the domino effect. As each Carlton player went down injured, Hawthorn seemed to kick a couple more. And, yeah, again, the caught them on percentage as well. So it's a two-barreled effect, that result.
Injuries are playing a big part in how this season's going to finish up for a lot of teams, and Carlton are getting them all at the wrong time.
It looks like they lose 5.
4 or 5, yep.
So it'll be Curnow,
Martin,
Fogarty, Sard, and the full forward.
Curnow.
No, the key pillar, brother at
McKay.
Yeah. Yep. So it looks like they got those 5. Now that's probably 2 or 3 of their best 5 too. So all of a sudden they're going to play without Curnow and McKay this week up forward.
Yep.
Oof.
St Kilda getting the job done against Richmond there. Pretty predictable in the end. And Adelaide with another surprise victory against the Bulldogs. They really took away the Bulldogs' strength right from the get-go.
It was, but I'll tell you what, St Kilda had the week from hell. I will say St Kilda's decision to even remotely consider approaching Taron Thomas is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. Let's just say I might have a couple of very interesting messages from officials from other clubs, and it was unforgivable idiocy, and you actually had the St Kilda players then going, no, don't go near him. And sorry, where's your respect for your women's team, etc. nowadays? It was extraordinary that
It's a decision that's going to divide the
dumb.
club, really.
Yeah.
And it's not what you need at the moment for St Kilda.
They got quite correctly held down and had people bombarding the club. And it was just so dumb.
Yep.
The game's hard enough as it is. Don't create more dramas through being bloody stupid. So we were doing our due diligence in considering. No, your due diligence is not approaching him in the first place.
Yeah, fair call. All right, round 21 and 22 Rising Star nominations. Jackson Archer from North Melbourne and Nate Caddy from Essendon. Couple of good players there that are probably going to be around the mark for their clubs for a few years to come.
He certainly got some similarities in having a crack to his dad.
Yep.
His dad, as we know, was suicidal at the fall.
Yep.
Was a bloody lunatic in reality.
Yep.
But yeah, he's showing a fair bit, and a fair bit of probably leadership, which is obviously what they need, being such a young list.
Yep.
That someone like him suddenly bolts probably into the leadership group.
Yep.
You'd expect next year.
It's going to be an interesting watch.
Caddy's got a bit to offer. He's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. All right, let's get on to this week's games. We'll whiz through these tips pretty quickly. Essendon v Sydney at Marvel.
You can't trust Essendon. You really probably can't trust Sydney either, but I'll go Sydney.
Gold Coast v Melbourne up at People First Choice Stadium or up on the Gold Coast?
I'll go Gold Coast.
I'll go the Gold Coast there as well, and I will go Sydney for the win there as well. The Giants v the Dockers. This one here has some huge ramifications for the top 4, top 8.
Again, you can't tip. You'd expect it to be close, and therefore I'm going Giants.
I'm going to go the Giants simply because it's at their home ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Collingwood v Brisbane at the MCG.
I'll go Brisbane a rebound, but again, I think this is a 50-50 game.
St Kilda v Geelong at Marvel.
I'll go Geelong, but I do give the Saints a chance.
All right. The Bulldogs v North Melbourne.
Bulldogs
for me as well, and I'll probably go Geelong as well, although the trip coming back from Perth with some ageing players sometimes does play a little bit of a part, but we'll see how that one goes. Hawthorn v Richmond.
Hawthorn
In the 8 for the first time this year, and Carlton outside of the 8 for the first time this year. Huge result last week. The Eagles v Carlton, mate.
I'm going to go for the Eagles because of Carlton's injuries.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Eagles. I hate tipping against Carlton, mate, but I think they're going to get.
Too many injuries.
Yeah, I think they're going to get up as well. And to finish us off, mate, the Showdown: Port Adelaide v Adelaide.
Yeah, obviously I hope I'm wrong, but I'll go Port.
All right, let's take a very quick break. When we come back, the top 5 up for grabs in the SANFL. The South Australian Redbacks appoint a new head coach. And the Olympics in the basketball, Izzy Bourla's bringing home bronze.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
A dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde, for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
All right, and we're going to kick off with the SANFL in around the grounds. Nord getting up over South Adelaide.
Yeah, did what they had to do. Very good up to half time. South, to their credit, actually did play some better footy after halftime. It wasn't so much a case of Nord dropping off. South were better. Look, Boyd dominating again. I will say a free kick against Boyd in the last quarter is in my worst 5 ever for a blocking free kick, and it's something I go on about all the time, that it really shows how few umpires at both SANFL and AFL actually understand rucking. And I would have, I don't care who, Peter Carey, whatever, Mick Red, a past player involved in trying to explain rucking, because there's just a huge lack of nous and guesswork done. And I did ask Jacob Kennelly, because I saw him go and speak to the umpire. And, yeah, Jacob then asked me my thoughts of it and went through, and we're just totally bemused on the decision. And I said, that goes against everything else for the rest of the year, that free kick. And it was just bizarre. And
is it a case of a bit like the AFL? They picked one rule out for the week and they're concentrating on it? Or
I just thought it was a guess, a really appalling guess. And I just think there needs to be some education. It's not, it's an area of the game because so few people have rucked in umpires. Look, I know of a couple of years ago, and I dare say it hasn't changed much, out of the 32 umpires on the AFL panel, 4 had played adult football. And I maintain that's a huge problem.
It makes a huge difference.
For mine, you must have played adult football. You don't have to play at the top level. You've got to have played adult footy to umpire. That's my feeling. I've had that for a long time. Going right back from when I hadn't, when I was at the SANFL panel in 83, went back to playing and then umpired afterwards. I'm thinking, geez, you need to have done it. And so not only none of them have, probably 99% of them have never contested a ruck thing. So they just don't know, just don't understand.
Obviously, Nord winning there and cementing probably a top 2 spot with the way that the games are all going to pan out over the next week or two.
Yeah, they've certainly got the double chance.
Absolutely. All right, North Adelaide getting up over Glenelg there was a bit of a surprise, but it keeps North Adelaide in the hunt now.
Yeah, Glenelg's one week of where it looked like they dominated against Nord, and you thought, geez, here they go, and fell away very quickly there. So you'd be pretty frustrated at Glenelg, thinking our best is certainly around the mark, but geez, we're not hitting it anywhere near often enough.
The gulf between the good and the bad isn't as tight as what it was in previous years. Sturt going along very well. I think they're up to 11 in a row at the moment, getting over Central Districts there at Thomas Farms Oval. We obviously talked to Chris Threadgold last week, and they're moving in the right direction.
Oh, they are. For mine, you've got to probably have them at the moment
as favourites.
Yeah, I think so at the moment on their form.
And 11 in a row certainly does that. Adelaide getting up over West Adelaide. Predictable result, but Gallant getting 8 certainly helped Adelaide's causes.
Helps himself, ironically, then, with an injury, which has opened up a thing. And who knows, he now has finishes the year with a couple of big games. Suddenly he's a chance to get another contract. So it's a fine line. Oh, look, I'd have him before Himmelberg anyway. That's personally. But,
Interesting. West Adelaide there just struggling a little bit as the year's gone on, but they've had a pretty good year all in all.
Yeah, it's an interesting one though, isn't it? Jeez,
well, they're not bottom.
No. Look, they've improved in that way, but geez, they do ask a lot. You're a Westie supporter. You play at Waikerie, you play at Port Lincoln, you play as a curtain raiser at Adelaide Oval. I know they've got to do that because financially they're struggling. So there's no other. It's not a case of we haven't got our cake and we can eat it too. But geez, they do ask a lot. So. Yeah,
fair enough. And Port Adelaide getting up over the Woodville West Torrens, which was a little bit of a surprise, but like we've said previously, they have those AFL players available. It makes a huge difference, doesn't it? Obviously, the top 5 is going to be an interesting watch with Eagles, North Adelaide, and Adelaide. Maybe Centrals, if things don't go their way, could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, it is. So you've got Adelaide are probably the form side out of that group. Okay, so they lose a player for Walker for the last couple, weakens them. But yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on that one over the next couple of weeks. Round 18 games, Nord v North Adelaide at, as you would say, the home of football, Cooper Stadium.
Yeah, on Friday night. look, because it's at home, I'll go Nord, but I really reckon it's a huge game.
Yep.
Huge game.
Again, ramifications for
Yep.
final spots as well. Central's v Glenelg out at the Ponderosa there.
I'll go Glenelg because I think they've got more ability, but Centrals have been more consistent overall and good out the bay, out at the Ponderosa, the big oval.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge game because whoever gets that game wins that game. They're favourite for the double chance.
Yes.
So it's on. It's a massive game.
Absolutely. It's definitely probably the game of the round for me. North Adelaide have got a lot to fight for, but I reckon that one there is the one. South Adelaide v Woodville West Torrens. Does it give Woodville West Torrens a bit of a chance to regain a bit of form? Because their last 3 or 4 weeks have been a bit patchy.
It does. Draper will come back in. And I mean, I found that bizarre on the look, unless he did have an injury, but Red rested. Now, if you're just resting on, hang on, you're only going to have him for 3 more games. Then he goes to the AFL. You may never see him again. Use that bloody game.
Yep.
I couldn't believe it.
Is that maybe a potential directive from above?
Oh, look, also at sports science and hang on, he's reached this level of loading and all that bullshit. Yeah, I just would have thought, hang on, if I'm South, I want him. I want him these last 3 games.
Fair enough. West Adelaide taking on Sturt out at Hisense. They're actually back home.
Yeah, you've got to go for Sturt though.
The bubble could burst, but I don't see it happening this week.
No, I will say Westies have a reasonable record of being competitive against Sturt.
Yes.
So, yeah, but I'll go for Sturt.
And in the SANFL Showdown, Port Adelaide v Adelaide. Again, we've got to wait to see who's in and who's out. But who do you favour at this early stage?
I'll go Adelaide.
I'll go Adelaide as well. All right, let's move on to cricket. Ryan Harris, we went a little bit early last week in sort of saying we hadn't heard anything, and literally a day after we recorded, bang, Ryan Harris is named South Australian coach.
Had messaged him, got a reply very quickly, and we will have him in the show on our show again in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that there, obviously with the season coming up there. Sticking with cricket, new CEO needed for Cricket Australia. Already changes.
It's interesting, isn't it? So it's evolving. Yes.
Now, I knew you'd like this one here. New rankings putting the best umpires in charge of more games. Is this a good thing?
Yeah, I don't mind it actually. I think instead of just sharing and look.
Because they're going on a ranking system a little bit like how they rate players and they're rating umpires now, giving them a little bit more opportunity.
And look, let's be honest, there is a particular West Indian umpire. How he's on the elite panel has me bemused. I wouldn't have him on the Seeing Guide Dogs panel personally.
Former guest Daryl Harper would have still been on that panel, would be fantastic as well, which would have been great. And just finishing off on cricket, Ben Stokes pops a hamstring. Where are England in the scheme of things as far as cricket goes? They look like they've lost their way a little bit.
Geez, I reckon he's done that bad too. I reckon that's a hamstring off the bone operation. So if that is, and we're still waiting for that to be confirmed.
It didn't look good.
No, that looked career-threatening for mine. That's a tendon gone. So,
All right, let's move on quickly. The Boomers on the Olympics knocked out after blowing a game-winning lead. Coach resigns effective immediately.
Also the writing on the wall, bit of both. Look, 24 up they were against Serbia, and they did blow it. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And then have a look, as you've written correctly, after Opal's getting the bronze. Now, they lose the first game to Nigeria, and it's and then things fall their way a little bit.
And they got the groove,
Yeah, and got through and get the bronze. All of a sudden, it's a successful campaign.
Absolutely.
Mind you, America were a little bit more gettable this time than the past. So I think they'd be disappointed that they didn't
get that opportunity.
Well, they didn't challenge America. They got blown away.
Yep. Still a little bit of work there to be done. As we mentioned in our little promo there, Isabel Borles, congratulations go to her to taking home the bronze. I'm sure she
did
still
well
celebrating.
against America too.
Yep.
She didn't get that much court time, got used against America because the game was done and dusted, and actually was probably our best player. So she showed a fair bit.
Look forward to watching her in the WNBL there in America. All right, Olympics done and dusted. It was our most successful campaign, 18 gold, 19 silver, 16 bronze for 53 medals. So, sorry, most successful away from Australia.
Yeah, look, incredible. Isn't it ironic, though, that the person who's getting the most publicity probably sums Australia up as a bit of is the ray gun. And
Yep.
who knows what's going to open up there in terms of for her for sponsorship. Okay, she's got a serious job on the side and took this as a bit of a Mickey. And I think probably now it's probably exploded a little bit with, hang on, shit.
Yep.
Like she got the absolute piss taken out.
Oh,
of
and
her.
it's still going.
But she seems to have ridden that in her stride, and now who knows what sponsorship stuff's going to evolve out of it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Look, but there was some, in terms of Jessica Hull, obviously, first track and field. Nadine Kennedy with a pole vault was fantastic. I tell you, I'm not a great sleeper, so I actually listened to a fair bit of the Olympics during. Bruce, he was on fire. Oh. Bruce was
Olympic Games without Bruce though.
Oh, geez, he was good on the ABC though. He produced, honestly. I thought he was going to produce when Jessica Hull went to the toilet as a 2-year-old as one of the stats at one stage. I was pissing myself laughing. He was huge.
I've actually met Bruce, and we just talked stats the entire time, and he's just so well researched. He just loves his sport, doesn't he? Yep. You did mention Jessica Hill winning silver there, which is fantastic for Australia.
Oh, look, the Fox sisters, the young 14-year-old skateboarder. Could be a triple gold, 3 Olympian at the age of 22.
Yep.
Could be on long service leave by 25.
Absolutely.
It's quite ridiculous, but yeah, it was fantastic. And to finish 4th overall, and look, the other one, let's also remember New Zealand, 10 gold medals, which on your percentage of population, they actually placed number 1.
Yep.
Incredible by them as well. And you think Great Britain combined for the Olympics too. They're not England.
Nope.
They combine with everything. Well, effectively we could say we got 28 out of under their method.
There's something happening down in the Pacific. All right, let's have a look at what's coming up this week. Coming up this week, we've got past players, past legends. BRYAN BEINKE from the Port Adelaide and Adelaide football clubs coming up on Friday. And next Monday, local legends flashbacks. Jackson Callow talking about the SANFL start to the season.
We'll have Jack on.
To the Game On podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking to buy or sell your home anywhere in Adelaide, from the hills to the sea? Meet Gary KRIEVS, your dedicated local agent from OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. With unparalleled knowledge of Adelaide's housing market and a commitment to exceptional service, Gary ensures a smooth and stress-free experience for all your real estate needs. Trust the expert, trust Gary KRIEVS at OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. Your next dream home awaits. Contact Gary today on 0422 071 317 or on email garyk@ocre.com.au. And for more listings, please visit owenscasserly.com.au. Make it happen. All right, mate.
On a sponsorship side of things, obviously love people to give Gary a ring. And I had some problems with my car on the weekend. It wasn't a prang or whatsoever. Just front lights decided to go, so I gave Craig a ring and fixed that up for me. So greatly appreciated to Craig as well. Anyone, please give the Craig Steen and Roger Steen Crash Repairs a ring. Thank you.
All right, let's get on with flashbacks this week. We've got, obviously, Showdown week this weekend, and we take a little bit of a look back to Round 8, 2018 at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide defeating Adelaide 11-14-95 to Adelaide 14-6-90. The one man that we're going to have a look at right now, Robbie Gray.
To Wines, who has an option in short, and on the end of it is Robbie Gray. Robbie Gray from just inside the 50. Dead on line from Robbie Gray. Is that the start of something? They're outnumbered down there, but hits the ground. Watch out, Robbie Gray. He's got one high. Be a free kick to Robbie Gray. And that's a beautiful strike. Watts, Sam Gray. Just couldn't sneak past Taylor, but he finds Jake Knee. Slips the handball inboard. Robbie Gray. Pulled it back in and now.
But
But the beauty of the low-scoring games, another free kick is...
A lot going on off the ball, Jared. I think it might be a port free to Robbie Gray. Back in the midfield this year, after being a forward primarily last year, but it's around the goals in the third quarter where he's making his mark.
Lots of blocks at the bottom of the screen there. Look at that.
2.5 minutes remaining. Oh, Robbie Gray. That's classical Robbie Gray. 4 goals in a quarter. What a star. At half forward, Brown is on Gray. He's looming again here. Good tackle, pressure from Need. He's ready in the pocket. Here we go for 5 and a quarter. Robbie! Let him entertain you!
All right, obviously Robbie Gray, the man of the moment there. Despite Adelaide leading by 21 points at halftime, Port Adelaide managed to cut Adelaide's margin back to single figures within 5 minutes left in the third quarter. Robbie Gray kicked 2 late goals, his 4th and 5th for the quarter, to give Port Adelaide the lead at three-quarter time. One of those classic matches, isn't it?
Yeah, it's also just such a fine line. The last play of the game, effectively, Mitch McGovern and Richard Douglas collide. Now, McGovern gets injured out of that. It effectively almost ended his career at Adelaide. Now, one step further apart, McGovern marks that. Not only does he kick the winning goal, he takes the match-saving mark.
Yes.
Who knows what would happen.
And obviously Motlop's the man that was benefited that as well. Port Adelaide obviously winning that game there. Robbie Gray claiming his 3rd Showdown medal for best on ground display. Managed 6 goals, which 5 of them within that third quarter.
He's certainly got a big claim, him, Roo, as the best Showdown player. Robbie Gray, I think.
Absolutely. All right, and next week we might have a little bit of a look at the Western Bulldogs and the GWS Giants. Some classic games there as well. Obviously, as we've said, we're going to bring those games, classic matches to you over the next couple of weeks. And as you said, some of those trade whispers and so on and so on. All right, let's get into the extra time big finish.
Extra time, big finish.
All right, mate, we're going to leave the extra time big finish pretty short today. We're just going to go for our good, the bad, the ugly for this week.
The ugly is the state netball grand final. I hadn't seen it till yesterday. I did notice it on Sam Greig's Facebook page. So I then had a look. I will say the bit of umpiring there to send the player off in contacts is just about the worst decision I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. It was the greatest Kath and Kim, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm bigger than the game moment. It was brain dead because the player wasn't even. And even Jog did run up there. It was an extraordinary, incompetent decision. And not often can you say, people will blame umpires, and we all know that. And then you look at things logically, like this week, the Sydney Collingwood, go, hang on, that's one decision, all that. No, in this, I will say the umpire decided the result, and that was horrific.
Potentially could have cost the South Adelaide their first ever premiership in the netball. You're good for the week, mate?
Yeah, I'll say GWS. I'm going to go for someone from out of field that they've kept hanging around and then ran over the top of Brisbane with some breathtaking footy in that last quarter. Yep. And look, the good was the Olympics. I think the Olympics overall was fantastic. Probably the controversy was more off ground, whatever you want to call it, with back at the village, the food and their crazy decision not to have so much food on them and had to be plant-based and sort of telling the athletes what to eat bullshit. And so it was a bit bizarre. And one athlete not managing to get into the stadium. So there was some bit of crazy stuff around these Olympics as well. Absolutely.
All right, my good for the week has probably been, like you, the Olympics, but Hawthorn are just going to another, even though it was against my Blues, but they are in the eight for the first time. So the good there. The bad is, like you, the netball, but probably McRae's comments after the Sydney game is probably my bad one as well. Yep. All right, mate, we're going to leave things there for today. I thank you once again. We thank BRYAN BEINKE, who's coming up on Friday for our Past Players, Past Legends segment. And until next time, we promise to do better.
We certainly will have a crack.
Thanks, folks.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at SportsCastSA. We'll see you next time on Game On.